Story time. How impact happens. We want you to have a competitive advantage. So let's talk about how impact happens. It's probably not what you think. Hi, Trudy Beerman here of Influence Media PSI TV. We're all about influential reach and media. Let's go. What we're going to look at today is once upon a time. Yes, I'm going to tell you a story. What the Bible says, what research says, your part, our part, and how the story ends. Hang with me. When we think of impact, we think of this kind of thing. A punch is thrown and immediate impact is felt. And that is one way that impact happens. And when we think about the space of business or making a speech or about a book, it would be so awesome if you shared your message and someone was instantly receiving their transformation. Not that it never happens that way, but it doesn't always happen that way. That does not mean impact has not happened. So this is the way most people think impact happens, and it absolutely does happen this way, but that's not the only way impact happens. So let's take a look. Once upon a time, there was a young boy who grew up in a remote part of the country of Jamaica. He was very poor, didn't have shoes to wear to school most of the time. And as he would say in his own words, he grew 3 inches out of his pants. He grew tall and his pants did not grow with him. But he was attending an event at a church. He was going to church and there was a guest speaker. That guest speaker made a presentation. And that little boy, his life was changed. His life was so changed that as he got older, he got better jobs and found better mentors who influenced him even further. And eventually he became probably an international celebrity, if not well known by the world, well known by millions of people in a certain area or a certain niche. Now, this story is a true story. This book here is Living by Faith. The man you see on this book is my father, Dr. Jerry Gallimore, and he wrote this book about his life, about how he lived by faith and how God showed up for him time and time again. He was the poor boy in the story who grew up in the remote parts of Jamaica in the country, very poor, and went on to do amazing things. But we're going to see how that story pans out in a little bit. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 3, verses 7 through 9, so neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. So he who plants and he who waters, and then we have the growth, okay? Somebody plants, somebody waters, and magically, or not so magically, there's a harvest, there's growth. Maybe you're beginning to catch on where this story is going. Stick with me. Here's another Bible passage. I picked it up in 2 versions because the King James Version had me scratching my head for many, many years. It says in Ecclesiastes 11, verse 1, cast thy bread upon the waters, thou shalt find it after many days. So as a child, I used to think very literally. And in truth, at my age, I still approach the Bible first from a very literal perspective. And then after I've looked at the literal perspective, then I try to catch the concept. But I always start with the literal. So this one really threw me for a little while. The Complete Jewish Bible reads it this way: send your resources out over the seas. Eventually you will reap a return. Reap a return. Reap a return. Doesn't that sound like impact to you? You had a resource, you did something with it, and you reap a return, you had an impact. Your money has found a return. So keep that in mind, okay? You sent your resources out overseas and you got a return. All right, keep that in mind. Now, research says, and this is peer-reviewed, okay? Peer-reviewed research, and they were looking at the ripple effect of a community-based health program, okay? So they had all these women and they did different versions of the experiment. They always have a control group, and then they compare an X and a Y variable. And they found that in the conclusion, relationship closeness rather than spatial closeness played an important role in influencing a rural community with the health intervention. Now, this should excite all of us, okay? Because you do not have to be within the same room to have impact. They found that relationship closeness rather than spatial closeness suggests geographically you are within close proximity to that person. Now, it's easy to understand from that picture of the punch that proximity, immediate proximity is a way to have impact, but this research is showing that that's not necessary. You do not need to be in the same geographic space to have impact and to make this ripple effect of influence and impact. These researchers found that relationship closeness rather than spatial closeness played an important influential role. Guys, when you come on television, you are not spatially close to the people, or even if you do video, you're not spatially close to the people who are listening, who are watching you. But you can build a relationship with people over time through video. It is the next best way to connect with people, where they can see you emote, see you move, hear your voice, look into your eyes, okay? And begin to decide if they like you, if they trust you. So relationship closeness rather than spatial closeness can create impact. This is huge. And this is partly why I do what I do. So here's another research, okay? These are all within the last 3 years, guys. I know the year isn't showing, but when I do research, many of you may know I'm a doctoral candidate. That means I'm in the research phase of my research on my dissertation. So I'm always in the academic research documents. And peer review simply means the person who wrote it, others of their peers vetted it and said, yes, this is good. Okay, so that's what peer review means. Now, this research was on sex education, and they were looking at peer-led sex education. Not the teachers now, their peers. Somebody from their peers. So what they conclude, it's just like, you know, they had, instead of the usual teacher-led sex education, they had peer educators, 16 and 17-year-olds who were trained. And what was the conclusion? Compared with conventional sex education at age 13 through 14, so the teachers who were the peers, 16 through 17, were teaching the 13 through 14-year-olds. It was not associated with change in teenage abortions, but may have led to fewer teenage births, and was popular with the students. This is important because a lot of you are sharing your story. When you share your story of your past and how you overcame something, and you speak to others who resonate with your story, this is like the peer-led instruction. Students connect and resonate much quicker with their peers than they did with the teacher. The peers had a bigger impact on the students. The 16 and 17-year-old instructors had a bigger impact on the 13, 14-year-olds than the teachers did. Some of you are sharing your lived experience, Okay, you may not have credentials and certifications and licenses, but you have lived through an experience, and you come and you share that experience with others, and they can live vicariously through your story. They can see themselves in your story, learn the lesson you've learned without having to experience the pain that you may have overcome. These research pieces are very exciting for you. And when you're a guest on television, I'm showing you how these researches are suggesting that you guys can really have impact, even if you're not in the immediate proximity of the person that you're speaking to, and even if you don't have all the credentials and the licenses and certification. Guys, you are making an impact. And that's why PSI TV is so excited to talk with you, share your story with our television audience. So let's keep going. Now, remember that picture I showed you of my father, the poor boy in the country who did not even have shoes to wear to school for a long time. He went to a church event, and a speaker spoke. His life was touched. His life was changed. And because of him becoming a Christ follower and living for Jesus and all the miracles and things that happened in his life that he shared in his book, here's where that poor Jamaican boy ended up. Amsterdam 2000. Now, my father is 84 years old, okay? So he's old now. But in the year 2000, which was 23 years ago at the moment of this recording, that poor Jamaican boy ended up a plenary speaker at Amsterdam 2000. Amsterdam 2000 was a Billy Graham Foundation event. More than 10,000 participants, all itinerant evangelists. What are those evangelists? So this was a leader of leaders event. The difference between just leading people and leading leaders is there is an exponential impact, because leaders go back to their congregation, to their audience, and they influence their audience. So when you're a leader of leaders, when you influence leaders, leaders go back with that influence and impact their audience. So when 10,000 leaders come from 185 countries to hear, and my father is a plenary speaker, and according to the results, I mean, they were blown away by what he had to say, okay? That is the impact. Now, that little pastor who spoke at the church when my father was 15 years old never lived to see how my father turned out. Now, my father was one of a handful of people that were in the audience, and they all heard the same message. But he is the one whose life was transformed to the point where this is one of the many results that he talks about in his book. The point I'm getting at is whose life will change because of your message, because of your solution. Whose life? Now, the thing is that you may never know. You may never know, because some plant, some water, somebody who hears your message today, may be the seed that was planted in their life. And later on, somebody else comes along and says something else. That's the water. And then all of a sudden, the harvest comes. This is the thing. We may not ever see the impact of what we have done, but never think for a minute that you're not having an impact. You might be having a ripple effect that you don't even know about. You drop the pebble, you drop your message, you share your product, you share your solution, and it may have that immediate impact on a single person. You might even know about those, but you don't know about the ripple effect. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. I want you to understand that impact is not just when you're in that proximity, that geographic space. You make the punch, you make the hit, and it's felt immediately. Sometimes these transformations do not happen immediately or for you to see and experience. What is your next step? We love talking to experts, authors, coaches, business owners on PSI TV. we want to make sure your message is in alignment with what our channel's all about, with what our audiences have come to expect. So not every applicant will get selected, but for the most part, we have made a television appearance very easy compared to how it was in the past. This is one of the things we do struggle to overcome. A lot of people still assume TV is like it was in the past, where it was hard to get an opportunity. You pitch, and people just don't respond, or it costs a brutal amount of money. We like to say that for the cost of a date night with your husband, with your spouse, with your bae, you can be a guest on PSI TV. So if that's your next step, then fantastic. At the end of it all, our goal is to get you influential reach. When you appear on television, on PSI television, I can't speak for all television channels. When you appear on PSI TV, our goal is to get you influential reach. We share your content across minimum of 17 platforms. And depending on a package, we will even guarantee you views. So definitely consider this as an option in your marketing plan. Trudy Beerman here, super simple to find. Thank you so much for joining me live or later. I do look forward to connecting.
You are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Jumping ponds to grow again. That's what we need to do if our goal is influential reach. Let's talk about that. So over here at PSI TV, we give our guests the brand elevation advantage. And the concept is you might be influential, you might be a big fish in a tiny pond. We want you to jump ponds and grow again. Did you know that goldfish do not grow to the size of their tank, but the size of the tank is an important factor for their growth from a practical sense? Goldfish can self-limit their growth in smaller tanks. It's a phenomenon called stunting. Goldfish have the potential to grow larger than their initial size, but the growth is influenced by various factors, including genetics, proper care, tank size, water quality and temperature, diet, and nutrition. We're not very different, guys. Humans have a potential, a capacity. Very few of us grow into that capacity. The size of the fish is the capacity that the fish has potential for is there. It always has been there. It's not determined by the size of the tank, but the size of the tank can limit the potential of the fish growth. This is the concept of jumping ponds and growing again. Are you maximizing your personal capacity? Chances are your environment, your care, and other things around you, maybe even your diet and nutrition, are stunting you. Let's talk about growing that influence and that audience reach. So we're going to be going over the influence and the little pond, why you need to jump ponds, adapting and growing, becoming the bigger fish, and how PSI TV can be a resource for your influential reach. Guys, this is a weekly show that we do every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Trudy Beerman here. Thank you for joining me live or later. Wherever you are watching this from, I'd appreciate a comment just to let me know, because we're looking to grow our own influence and audience reach. So it's always an interest to me to know where in the world you're listening from. Do me the favor of just making a note in the comments below and telling me where in the world you're listening from. We'd like to know how far this message is going. We happen to know that our podcast, which is the audio version of our shows, has a high interest in Egypt. Now, I'm in the United States. Ask me why Egypt has locked onto our message in such a big way, but we are a top podcast in Egypt. So let's talk about influence and the little pond. There's a difference between influence and reach. So if you're a big fish in a small pond, you do have influence, but your reach is very tiny. Audience reach, on the other hand, is when you have the world at your disposal. So you can be known across the world for something good, or you can be known across the world for something bad. So which is it going to be for you? Now, we will have to agree that the comfort zone is in that small pond. You know your peers, you know you're well known at your church, you're well known at your school, but you leave that space, you leave that circle. It's no longer very comfortable for you. All of a sudden, you're a nobody. For example, I was born in Jamaica, and my family was well known in Jamaica. Well known. Jamaica is a tiny island. It could fit a million times over in the state of Florida. I come here and nobody knows my name, my family name, or anything. So there is the comfort zone when you stay in your tiny circle where you are a big fish. So here's why you need to jump ponds. The main reason is limitations exist in a confined environment. So let's see what the Bible says about this. In Genesis 12, God calls Abram. His name was Abram, and then God changed it to Abraham. That's a story for another day. Let's just see what this says here. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. Abram had to leave his country to get this growth, to get this blessing. The blessing was not going to come from his place of familiarity. A lot of times, if you, let's say, for example, you grew up in the hood, or you had maybe you had a criminal history or something, the people who knew you are not going to let you forget that. They're not going to let you forget where you came from. And sometimes that's a good thing because it makes you who you are. But when you are trapped in that situation, you really are not going to grow beyond the limitation of that environment. So God called Abram out of his home into a wide and open space. And in that wide and open space, he was able to get his name great, influence, and reach. And he, in the process, also acquired a lot of wealth. Abram wasn't just rich, guys. He was very rich. The Bible says he was very rich in cattle and in gold and in silver. Here's another one from the New Testament. This is Romans 15, 23 through 32. But now, since I no longer have room for work in these regions, and since I have longed for many years to come to you, I hope to see you in passing as I go to Spain, and may be helped on my journey there by you once I've enjoyed your company for a while. At present, however, I'm going to Jerusalem, bringing aid to the saints. And he talks about Macedonia and Achaia and all of this. This is Paul talking. So Paul was one of the great apostles, and he left his home, traveled the world. In fact, he has been one of the main contributors to the Gentile population knowing Christ. So he traveled. He had this important message that he had to share, and he could not stay in his hometown. He had to take the message, and he traveled to take the message far and wide. And on top of it, it says, since I have no longer any room for work in these 8 regions, he had maxed his capacity in the pond he was in. He needed to jump ponds, so he now was going to Spain and so forth. We do need to jump ponds. If you have a message, a solution, a lifestyle upgrade, entertainment, people need to know about it. People need to know, but people can be blessed by it. You need to get that message out far and wide. Now, when you jump ponds, there's going to be that measure of discomfort. You're no longer around your area of comfort, the people who know you. Are going to be in a brand new, unknown environment. And the Peter principle is an academic understanding that we have a capacity. So let's say you're in a job and you're being promoted and you're being promoted, all of a sudden you're no longer being promoted. You have hit the limit of your capacity in that job. So that's a Peter principle. We will have a natural limit and people will be able to see it. This is why you want to get coaching and training, because you can, if you don't keep growing, you're going to hit the capacity of where you are, and that's going to keep you where you are. For you to, you need to keep growing and becoming the bigger fish in that next bigger pond. So a part of the adapting and growing is now you have the opportunity to share your message on a stage, on television, on podcasts, and many of you are in stage fright mode. This is one of the limiting capacities for people being willing to take their message out there. Guys, you just have to get over it. You just have to get over it. Even something as simple as camera presence. I've had many guests on PSI TV who they have not even made a video for themselves, and they really don't have the camera presence. They don't look in the camera. They're scared, and it shows up on camera. You still got to do it. You just have to do it. You just have to get over it. There's no way to get over it except practice, practice, practice. Okay, you just have to do it. Now, becoming the bigger fish. Okay, so you realize you've hit the capacity of where you are. You've decided now to jump and grow again. So you've gotten over the stage fright. You're starting to adapt to your environment. Now you need to become the bigger fish. Guys, if you do this right, so if you're a little fish if you're a big fish in a small pond and you have influence in that small pond and you jump and you grow again, okay, you have to become that bigger fish in that next pond to jump and grow again. Technically, at that point, if you're doing that and doing it right, you can become well known in your community, in your city, in your state, in your nation, and maybe even globally. That is the goal for PSI TV. We're doing this along with you. We're asking you to join us on this journey. We have helped many. So we consider ourselves like maybe just a step or two ahead of some of you. So we're not by any means a global household name yet. We're working on that. We are definitely seeing from our metrics that we're growing and growing and growing. And we've brought a lot of people along with us. And you should be doing the same, whether you do it with us or not. This content is to help you. If you're that A-type personality, to take this information and run with it by all means. Now, some of you may know I'm a doctoral candidate and I'm in the area of strategic leadership with my interest for research in influential reach, primarily because I'm in TV. So that's why I'm doing that as well. So I am always looking at academic research. And here is one that I found. It's peer reviewed, which means it's not just somebody wrote it. They were an expert in their space, and peers within their industry looked it over and verified it. So it's peer reviewed. It's very recent. And the study was on the valuation of brand equity and retailer growth strategies using real options. Growth strategies for brand equity. If you understand equity, it's, think of when you purchase your house and you take out your mortgage, you have almost zero equity, or maybe just your deposit is the equity in your house. But over time, you, after paying in more and more over time, your equity in that house grows. It's the same with brands, guys. If we keep showing up, if we keep pumping out content, if we make strategic moves to reach a wider and wider audience every time, you're building brand equity. So this particular research looks at brand equity growth strategies. So let's see what it has to say. So here is one aspect of that research. So the business gets launched. There's different things that they do for reinforcements. And here comes leverage. Leverage is going to be your marketing, your presence on TV, your social media, all the kinds of strategic moves that you make to leverage that brand to have more and more exposure and expansion. And from that leverage, you can get brand expansion and brand extension. I'm not going to go into what that means. You can see here, brand expansion may be new geographic areas, new market segments, and all of that. Brand extension can be, more categories within your. So for example, with PSI TV, we started out as just a TV platform, and we were interviewing guests they were on TV. We gave them that TV placement. However, we have had that category extension. So we offer guaranteed views. We offer press release and distribution. We're taking the content and we're sending it to other platforms. through podcasts and so forth. So we have been doing that. We have been leveraging our brand to achieve a measure of brand expansion and brand extension. That's what you should be doing as well. Here's another aspect of that same research, and it says identifying true comparable firms often is challenging. Many of you don't even know who your true competitor is. One needs to identify all relevant characteristics that make firms comparable besides being in a typical firm in the same industry. It's not enough to just look at your competitor in the same industry, not just the same industry, but what could be a substitute for you altogether. So for example, a substitute for TV is YouTube. It truly is. So it's not, I can't just look at other TV platforms as my competitor. I have to look at YouTube and Vimeo as my potential competitor for my audience's attention and their dollars. So you have to really think through your industry when you're looking at how are you going to get that brand equity. The other thing that it says here, a brand's value is an intangible object. It's not like I can say I've got 6 computers and so many cameras. Those are tangible objects that can be part of the asset computation of the value of the business. But the brand has a value and it's quite intangible. And right now, that's one of the challenges going on with the war with Trump, because there's an argument about whether his property is at the value that he says. Now, if they're looking at just the market value in comparisons, they will have one valuation, but the brand of Trump has an intangible asset valuation. We don't have to agree on whether we like Trump or not. This is not that. We're looking at that as an example that the Trump brand has an intangible value that is harder to compute in the overall brand value of everything. And so our approach that links brand value creation to management's vision, strategic plans, and contingent future scenarios in the firm's environment. So a lot of times when a company gets bought out, okay, so like the original people who made YouTube got bought out by Google, and they got a large sum, probably way more than the immediate valuation, but the valuation for the buyout would have included the future scenarios in the firm's environment. So you have to think about that when you're even looking at your brand value as you make these strategic growth moves. And guys, if you fail to make these strategic growth moves that leverage your brand equity, such as appearing everywhere, that digital omnipresence that I keep talking about, I can't drive it home enough, jumping ponds and growing again, appearing everywhere. I have a media challenge. Some of you may have already participated. Some of you may want to opt in on the wait list to do that in the future, where you get the stuff you need to get qualified to be invited on various podcast stages and shows. So that's something if you're interested, that's not being offered here right now, but you can let me know and we can add you to that wait list. But you really should be leveraging your brand strategically, because that brand value equity is an intangible object, but it is very, very real. So your competitor is not necessarily right next to you, okay? Your competition will be those who are in your industry, but it doesn't have to be. You can create a blue ocean strategy, and I've talked about that before, where you're not lumped in with the rest. So you are seen as way out there, maybe even as a luxury option to the rest. You're not lumped in with the rest. You're not a Dollar Tree. You're not a Walmart. You may be a Neiman Marcus or something. So in other words, you even if you seem to sell similar opportunities, that you are just a mile away from the nearest competitor. So TV is the #1 video platform for authority. It still is. I asked ChatGPT of the 5 video platforms available, which is #1, and TV came up #1. YouTube was #2. Now, why is TV still #1? It's been mainstream and understanding for decades that this is the authoritative video platform. The second thing, and most importantly, is while YouTube has now in many ways outstretched the reach of television as a platform, YouTube, anybody can be on YouTube. Any joker can be there. And the effort and cost it takes to be on television creates that blue ocean strategy between YouTube and TV. And that's why TV remains a powerhouse for authority and credibility, because it does take quite a bit of effort and sometimes expense to have a TV presence. When you come on PSI TV, for example, because we're talking about PSI TV as a resource for achieving influential reach, your competitor is not showing up on television. Look around you, whatever industry you're in. I can tell you, for example, we just created a new brand channel for West CEO Fitness. When we looked it up on Roku, there were only 16 fitness channels on TV. Guys, TV has changed from the days of black and white and 3 channels, and it's been evolving over time. Television as a platform has been evolving. Then we had 24/7, and we had all cable TV, and then we had TiVo, and now with Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, we now have the Internet Protocol TV, which is allowed for on-demand television 24/7, and the opportunity for an organization like mine to suddenly exist. So Roku television as a platform for sharing content, just like YouTube when it started up, when people started putting content on there, Roku television is still wide open for people like you and me to have a TV presence, which was a high barrier blocking us from before. So your competitor is not on television, guys. West CEO Fitness is the 17th fitness channel on Roku TV. That's it. If somebody goes clicking through for fitness, there's 17 options. Actually, we haven't launched the 17th one yet. 17 options. I promise you, when you type in on Roku the channels, you can do Bitcoin, you can do coaching, you can do legal, you can, whatever industry you're in, there are a handful of channels. It's still wide open. So if any of you remember what it was to be one of the first on Facebook, one of the first on YouTube, guys, this is wide open territory. Your competitor is not here. Trust transfer comes like if you're on a guest on my show, my audience has no clue who you are, but they know who I am. And they're going to assume that if I've decided that you are worthy of being a guest on PSI TV, they're going to automatically transfer the trust they have for me to you. That's kind of how it works on any platform. That's why people want to be on Oprah, because the trust transfer from this known, respected brand gets transferred over to the person who is not known by that group at all. Nobody knows you. It's like if your friend introduces you, it makes a big difference. And if you walk into the room and try and introduce yourself, that's trust transfer. That happens when you're a guest on PSI TV. The endowment effect is another academic concept. That is the association with what is considered a prestigious brand. So when your presence on TV, whether it is you have a brand channel on Roku or Apple TV or one, by the way, we can build those. Whether it is because your presence is there, your brand is there, it's an automatic assumption of elevation of your brand. It's like if you write a book, guys, even if you've never made a book sale, the fact that you've written a book is already a wow to a lot of people. Why? Because they're not doing it. They haven't accomplished it. The fact that you've done it is a wow factor. That is the endowment effect of having a presence on television. And PSI TV can make that happen for you, whether as a guest or as a brand channel. You will also get that new audience reach. When you're a guest on PSI TV or you have a brand channel on television, you are going to reach an audience you're not currently tapping into. And depending on the package that you choose with us, we can not just give you placement on these many platforms, but we can also guarantee you views and take that content we've already collected, write a press release and get it distributed. We're stacking the value to our guests. So we have left just being a TV platform so people can go, yeah, I was on TV. No, in addition, we now see ourselves in the influential reach business. And so when we serve our guests, that's one of the goals, is how are we contributing to their influence and their reach? There are many that do what you do. There are many that can be an alternative to you. Like I said, YouTube is an alternative to television. So as you're there amongst the many, the goal is to stand out. The goal is to be the one that comes to mind when people want what you have to offer, and television will help with that. Should you decide that that is your next move and you want to get brand elevation advantage, you could consider being a guest on PSI TV. You do have to apply. We tend to take on coaches, authors, and business owners. We're not an entertainment channel, we're an edutainment channel. So even entertainers that we do interview, we're looking more at the business of their talent. Okay. So if you are one of those people, you can apply and then you'll hear back from us, because we want to also make sure that the content we're sharing with our audience is a fit. Having connected with PSI TV, the goal is a result in your influence and your reach. You are going to be the one others want to hear from. You are going to be offered opportunities to be guests on stages, podcasts, and more. Yours will be the first name that comes to mind for the thing that you do, the obvious choice from the competition around you. You will even be recognized by people you don't know. You show up on TV, it's like the pastor at the church. Everybody knows the pastor at the church. The pastor does not know everybody at the church. That's one of the things that happens when you grow your influence and your reach. You will eventually be considered a celebrity and paid as one. If this was of value to you, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you will be reminded when we put up new content and you can get it right away and not miss it. Trudy Beerman here. Thank you so much for joining me live or later. And I do respond to comments, guys. If you drop that comment in wherever you're watching this, because this is going to be syndicated out to many platforms, please let me know where you're watching from. And let me know if you've ever had a TV experience anywhere and how you are growing your influence and reach, influential reach. That's what we're all about here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super simple to find, and I do look forward to connecting.
Okay. You know, I usually use Zoom, which allows me to have a background and filters, but I am using StreamYard. I'm using StreamYard today because it allows me to simulcast to 3 platforms. So I am watching the chat. Hopefully you'll watch live or later. If you are watching live, please leave a comment, say hello, let me know you're here. It does energize me to know that someone is watching live. Ask any questions. This is a great time to ask questions. Okay, so I wanted to address a huge problem many of you have. How do I know you have it? I had it. The problem is we need to make sales. Whether it is that you have a job or you have a business, income is the lifeblood. It's how we support our families. It's how we are not begging on the street. So we need to sell. The problem is a lot of us hate selling. I know I did for a lot. In fact, my husband told me I could never be a salesperson. In terms of how we perceive sales, the business of sales, and salespeople in general. And that comes from a history of poor performers. And the poor performers of the many have created a perception that is very often untrue for most of us. But the perception is still so strong, it's so out there that even those of us who understand that our business is of value to the world, that the idea of selling paralyzes many of us. It used to do it to me. I used to be the first one to say, I can't sell. I can't sell. I was great at writing. I would happily make a website, but the idea of selling would paralyze me. Picking up the phone to talk to someone about my products would absolutely paralyze me. Am I the only one? Can I get a witness? Hey, I cannot be the only one. Well, I had to address that because it was either I go get somebody's job or I figured this thing out. And clearly I knew TV was one of my answers, which was why I was so adamant. At the time, YouTube was not a thing. And even when YouTube came on, it was still not really a thing. And, over time, YouTube has come to be a powerful presence. And I do encourage you to be there. But TV remains a top video platform, even if you ask ChatGPT. And it's simply because the history of TV, the authority that TV has become to be associated with, and the fact that the jokers can easily be on social media for free means the jokers are not making the effort or the expense to be on TV. So TV remains a credible, authoritative platform, to the point where the brand, as seen on TV, is so powerful. So that being said, I knew I had to solve the sales issue for my business. Now, I wasn't always in TV, guys. I actually was in a financial space. I'm a licensed insurance agent. I hold my real estate broker's license. I'm a certified credit consultant, blah, 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 blah. I was in the financial space. So I wanted to take that message out to the public, to create that level of awareness, hopefully create a list of prospects that would, come see what I had to say or learn more about me or whatever. So I knew I needed to get out there, and I fully appreciated the impact of video as being the next best way for someone to get to know me, other than just reaching across the table and shaking my hand. So I understood that very early. And I went to television, and then eventually, yes, I have a presence on YouTube now, which I'm actively building because of my guests. I understand that when guests come to television, as when I wanted to be on TV, that it's more than just I was on TV. It's more than that for you guys now. I fully get it. You are looking for exposure and audience reach, which we have coined influential reach, which we have created the trademark on. Reachology is the way we call it, is the science and study of influential reach, not just influence. Influence is when you're a big fish in a small pond, and the small pond is your reach. Influential reach is its own animal, not just influence, not just reach. You can be very popular and have zero credibility. So the space of influential reach is how we re-envisioned PSI TV. So let me get back to the problem. Selling. You have something that you need sales for. You need to constantly have a brand new flow of brand new eyes, new prospects coming into that pipeline, because guys, after you've sold to the family and friends in that small pool, they've all supported you. That's not going to keep you guys going to this grocery store. It's not going to keep a roof over your head. You've got to keep a continuous flow of income coming in. And I'm not talking to the people with JOBs. Now I'm talking about those of you creating the jobs for the others, right? Those of us who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, we are creating the income flow for the others and for ourselves. So I had to solve this problem. And one of the ways I solved the problem was I had a lot of coaching. Grant Cardone is one of the many that really, shout out to Grant Cardone, got me over the hump of me saying, I can't sell, got me over that big time. So if you really need to get over that, you probably need a Grant Cardone style course, simply because he will twist your arm a little bit. And I'm not going for that kind of a thing, but just as a bravado, it really got me braver and willing to do what needed to be done. And that's kind of what I got out of his course. But I've had several coaches and courses since then. Back to how TV can help. So you need to get in front of audiences. And guys, you should be creating your own audience base. I will be doing a show, actually, our next live on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Oh, I hate to make shows not evergreen. But anyway, this Monday coming 10:30 a.m., we're going to do a show on the difference between the social media influencer and the entrepreneurial influencer. Yes, it is a thing. The entrepreneurial influencer, which is what I'm attempting to become. So I'm definitely building my influential reach, actively so, especially because I've made that the focus of my doctoral study, not only for my own brand of the PSI TV, but I'm building this brand for you guys. So when you're guests on PSI TV, the audience that we have been actively curating and building will be the audience we put your content in front of, and it's ever expanding. We're expanding. We're seeing our view count go up. We're seeing our subscription rate go up on YouTube, and our followers on IG, our followers at Facebook, where we're building that audience and we're building it for you. Now, you hate to sell. Yes, I get it. I know I used to hate to sell too. But what PSI TV does is solves a whole bunch of those problems for you. Number one, I see I have one like. Alu Tori. Hey, Alu, thank you so much for checking in. I appreciate you. So when you get in front of this audience that you did not have to build, this is why I have the media challenge, guys. Look out for my media challenge. I have it several times a year. I am having one coming up in January, and the January 2024 media challenge is going to have additional bonuses that have not appeared in prior media challenges, that will not appear in the ones coming up after this month. But the media challenge is to get you ready to get on other people's platforms, so that if you don't already have an audience, and even if you do, you'll build a bigger audience. Why is it that Tony Robbins and Rihanna and Taylor Swift, they're being interviewed on different people's shows, Ellen DeGeneres and Saturday Night Live? Why? Because they need to get in front of other people's audiences. They need to remind their audience. You need to have a continuous media presence. You're not going to build your brand if you do not have a continuous media presence. That's why we have billboards on the side of the road. A billboard can't make a sale. The billboard is there to continuously remind you that the brand exists and what that brand story is all about. So PSI TV, we're actively building the audience base. When we have a guest on PSI TV, we are in the space of what we call edutainment. Edutainment. So it's like we're educating the consumer about what you do in a more entertaining format. So if you were to get on your own video, or if you're to get on a live, or you're creating content and you're like, I'm great, my product's awesome, it's the best. Okay, maybe it is, but when you hype it up yourself, it's not quite the same as when someone else speaks into it for you. This is why brand testimonials are so awesome. When you get a testimonial from someone, it is way more powerful than if you said the same thing about your stuff. So when we have guests on PSI TV, there is an immediate trust transfer. The people who are watching to see what else is Trudy coming up with today gets introduced to my guest. They never heard of them before, didn't even know they exist. All of a sudden, you're on their radar. Blip, you're on the radar, okay? Now you're on the radar. They may or may not check you out based on what's going on in the show. Let's say they watch the show, which is another thing PSI TV has taken to do. Because we understand that we're in the knowledge broker business. We're here to share your content. We're building this to build you, okay? We understand the vision for our business. We're building your brands for you. So I believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. If I help you achieve what you want to achieve, I'll achieve what I want to achieve in the end. So I put you guys first, push your stuff forward, and in the end, my stuff will eventually get built up. So we have opted not to monetize our PSI TV channel via ad sales. Guys, turn on TV, and how many ads do you see? Now, I'll admit, YouTube runs ads on our shows. I can't help it. YouTube is their own platform. They make their own decisions. And even if my channel was not monetized, which it is, simply because we've accomplished what YouTube is looking for to monetize the channel. We have upwards of 2,000 subscribers, going on closer to 3,000 right now. And that's because we've been deliberate. It wasn't always like that. We're getting the views, and so therefore we got monetized. YouTube's going to put the ads on. Can't help it. But on television, we opted not to interrupt the show we have built with you, the co-created show we're doing, to run ads. Ads are an interruption. Ads are an audience attention break. It's a point where we leave the show to go get a snack or change a channel. So we opted, and trust me, that's a lot of money on the table that we left behind. But we've looked at our priorities. We looked at what the goals we're trying to accomplish, and running ads on television is not going to bring us to our overall goal. It might bring us closer to our financial goals, but not to the overall goal. And I truly believe that if I make the first thing, if I make the priority, everything else will take care of itself. I hope I'm not wrong, but that's what I currently believe. So we help you solve the sales problem because you're getting in front of a brand new audience that didn't know you existed. You're getting that trust transfer that all of a sudden these people never knew who you were, not only know who you are, but if you're a guest on PSI TV, clearly I've decided it's worth sharing with my audience. The third thing is I always interview my guests from the perspective of the prospect. If I were going to be a prospect for your offer, be it a book you just wrote, guys, there's 50 million titles available for sale on Amazon. Okay. If you want your book that you just worked so hard to write to get read, people have to even know it exists, and there's 50 million options vying for their attention. Okay. If you're a coach, I just did a show on this. There's how many millions of life coaches, not just any coach, no, life coaches alone in the United States, how many millions of realtors. If you want to be seen, to be recognized, you're competing with many, many others. So when we introduce you to our guest, you get in front of a brand new audience, you get trust transfer, you probably will pick up some prospects. And also, we are asking you questions. We research our guests. We don't just come on and, oh, introduce yourself and what do you do? No, we research you, and we ask the kinds of questions that very likely your audience would want answered before you were a possible option for the thing that you do. So you get on their radar. You're now a blip on their radar. Okay, you exist. And now they're like, you might be an option. And then the next stage of that funnel would be a taste test. So depending on how you've crafted your call to action, it might be a free download of something, or a free checklist, or a free consultation, whatever. They might take a taste test. Once they've taken the taste test, you're now in the running, because now you might be someone that they're going to want to buy from, or they're in your lead funnel, so that you can nurture that sequence and let them get to know you more off of our platform. That's what it's here for, guys. But that funnel starts somewhere. It's got to start somewhere. And PSI TV is a very good place for it to start, or for it to get, additional prospects added into your funnel from this lead generation platform. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And yeah, I think I may do a lot more of these spontaneous lives, but I always do Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We do a live show. It's always on the topic of influential reach, always on the topic of something around the area of influential reach. Guys, this is my doctoral research pursuit. I am looking at what the academic research says about this space of influence and audience reach and everything to do with that. And I'm also looking at what the market does, because I'm doing it myself within the market. I have coaches, I have peers that are doing it. I'm actively looking for the answers, because not only are we building the PSI TV brand, but we're building that audience base so that our guests will feel that value stack. We are stacking the value of you, of it being a no-brainer for you to do business with PSI TV, whether it is because you come on as a guest on our show, or you realize the value of having a brand channel like a PSI TV. So if you're busy making content for your channel, whether you're putting it on Facebook, you have a YouTube channel, you have a TikTok, if you're creating videos, you may also want to consider having a television channel for your brand. Right now, it is like the new frontier. Okay. So just like when YouTube came on and they had started to get a few videos up, and now it's a powerhouse with millions and millions and millions of channels. Well, television is a changing landscape as well. And cable TV, as we know it, is dying. And internet protocol television, or over the top television, or that is changing the game. And so we now have 24-hour on-demand TV, live streaming, all kinds of things. And it's new for the television platform. And you might be able to be one of the first few channels that are non-traditional television like PSI TV is. We just put up a brand new channel for West CEO Fitness. Theirs were the 17th fitness channel on Roku TV. Can you imagine how many millions of channels exist for fitness on Facebook or on TikTok or on YouTube? Well, on Roku, it's because the traditional stars and HBO and those are there, but offers like yours right now, you can find Bitcoin channels, you can find coaching channels, you can find fitness channels, you can find legal channels, you can find cannabis channels that are appearing on TV. Never before in the history of TV was that a possibility. And it is possible now. And that's one of the other things in fact, that's where we really love to be, in the space of creating brand channels for business brands. We would love to do that all day long, even more so than interviewing you, I'll be honest. So that being said, we're value stacking. We're constantly building the audience so that when you're a guest on PSI TV, you will not only be in front of an audience. I'll tell you, a lot of these podcasts do not have an audience of their own. They do not. So free is, it's free is free. I mean, when you are not making any money, it makes it really hard for you to go build an audience. So I'm not saying don't do the free options, but yeah, you might be getting interviewed and sometimes not even very well, but do they really have an audience to put you in front of? I don't know. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Trudy Beerman here. I am super simple to find, and I do look forward to connecting with you. Who else was on? I see another name. Let's see. Who else is on live with me today? Mansoor Mirza. I hope I pronounced your name right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.